Hello and welcome to peer-to-peer learning, which we're also going to call cooperative learning. This presentation contains additional material from what's in our textbook, so please make sure you print out the printed copy and pay attention to our notes. Thank you. Cooperative learning is more than just saying to a bunch of students, all right, you four go over there and start working on this type of project. There's a lot more to cooperative learning than that. There's a lot of research that supports the effective use of good cooperative learning strategies. Here are some major players in cooperative learning. These links are active. You could check them out. There's over 25 years of research that supports the value of cooperative learning in a class environment. And here are some of the things they do to increase student learning, self-esteem, communication skills, positive attitudes, positive impact among racial groups. Yes, having students working in small groups can significantly increase students' accomplishments at school. Now, you just can't say, all right, you students work together. That's not a cooperative group. It needs structure. Can't say you students help the slower student. That's not a cooperative group when you're finished. And usually sometimes when you see group work going on, it's one student doing all the group and then the entire group gets the credit. That's not a good example of a cooperative activity. Well, good cooperative learning is a very active learning process. Students are taking control of their own learning. Also, you pick the groups, so you have good heterogeneous grouping. There are 5 key components or elements of cooperative learning. As you design your lessons, we should include each of these components. Let's go over them one by one. The first one, positive interdependence. This is where you create a lesson where the students perceive that they are linked together with each other, and they cannot be successful unless they all work together as a group in order to succeed. Kind of like we all must either swim or sink together. And this little image sort of, to me, summarizes what a positive independence. You structure the lesson in such a way that they all have to pull the same way in order to succeed. If not, they'll fall overboard or whatever the case might be. Okay, positive interdependence techniques. First thing, you, the teacher, assign the groups. You decide who's in each group. You do not let the students pick their own groups. Let them know what kind of behavior you expect them to do in this group. If you want no loud talking or no shouting, make sure that's clear. I have what I call a 24-inch voice. That means if I'm more than 2 feet away from your group, I should not hear the people in your group talking. Assign roles. You want each person in the group to have a particular function or a particular role. For an example, you have a recorder, a presenter, a timekeeper, a question seeker. This is a very useful role, the question seeker. Only one student from the group can call the teacher over to ask a question. What this does is forces people in the group to communicate with each other first before calling the teacher. And 9 out of 10 times, they'll be able to answer their own question. And of course, while the groups are working, you, the teacher, are walking around the room observing the groups. And when appropriate, you might ask a little question just to make sure to keep them back on task and so on. But mostly you're observing and listening to what they are saying when they are working in their groups. One strategy is also to collect. You collect all the papers, but maybe one paper from each group will be graded as part of their group grade. This could be a bonus point or part of the whole grade structure, you decide. But you're trying to come up with a technique to encourage that positive interdependence. And above all, make sure that all your directions are very clear. Component number 2, face-to-face promotion. You want the students to be working together so they can explain things to each other and help each other. Here are some techniques for doing that. There's a saying we call eye to eye, knee to knee. You want to position the students so they are close to each other when they are working together in an activity. Make sure you design the activity in such a way that requires all students to communicate with each other. I like giving extra credit points for good group work. Bonus points. I teach high school science, and if the group did excellent work, they received an extra proton. Protons were positive, so there were positive plus points to their grade. And also in a high school setting, you want to keep the group size no larger than 4. So 3 to 4 is a good group size. A third component is individual accountability. This is an extremely important part of cooperative learning. Students must realize that they alone, that they're going to be responsible for this material at the end of this activity. So it's not like the activities, they complete it and it's gone and it's forgotten. Somehow it's going to come back to them again. So there's probably a group type grade, could be bonus points, but most important there is an individual grade for individual accountability. Here are some techniques. All work will be graded. Either you collect the work or you put them in the students' notebooks. Have some sort of quiz or a test on the work that you were doing in your class. Or you can have students sort of write in an essay or put something in their journal that will be marked or graded later on. But individual accountability is an extremely important part of cooperative learning. Fourth component, social skills. Students need to know how to work in a group. They may not be used to working in a group. They're used to sitting there in an independent format while they're learning. Now they're working in groups. Leadership may form. You need to have trust, communications. There may be some disagreements. So we need to make sure that students have these skills to be successful in their group. Social skills, techniques. Explain to the students what kind of behavior you expect them to exhibit in the room. To help promote team building, you may ask them to come up with a team name or a team logo. They could call themselves the Dancing Protons or whatever, or whatever name, but some sort of team name. You might have to model some behavior for them. For an example, like you might want to model or role play out if two students disagree on something. How do you expect them to disagree in a constructive way? Like you don't just have them yelling at each other, you idiot. You might have to say, well, I disagree with you because of this and so on. And also, you as a teacher, you need to be aware of some sort of group social interactions and be ready to interject or intervene if necessary. The last component, group process. It is effective if the group gets a chance to reflect on their accomplishments and what they could do better next time when they're working together in the group. Group process techniques. This is where you give the students in a group an opportunity to reflect on what they accomplish while doing this activity. They can write down some of their accomplishments, some of their strengths and weaknesses. Or you could also be going around the room with a grading rubric, and there's a link below here for a sample observation sheet where it gives students points for their group work. And then after you assign the points, you could then show them your comments on your reflections on how well they work together as a group. I've always found it's good to give bonus points. I don't actually give a separate grade. I give extra credit points, which I call protons, because I was a science teacher, pluses, positive. And when students work well together, they got 1 or 2, maybe up to 3 bonus points for good group work. As our textbook goes over, there are several styles of cooperative learning. I gave you the foundation for all styles of cooperative learning. And then there's some offshoots. There's jigsaw, structure controversy, and teams game tournament. You can read them over in our text. Here are some tips for developing a peer-to-peer cooperative learning lesson in your classroom. Starting from number 1. Design an activity that's going to reinforce what you're currently teaching in your room or will be teaching in the next couple days. 2. You decide who's in each group. Use whatever method you want. You could use cards, make it random, or you can use the counting method. For an example, if there's 24 students in your classroom and you want 6 groups of 4, you'll count out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. And then you'll say all the 1s over here, all the 2s over there, all the 3s over there, and so on. So you'll have 6 groups of 4 students in each group. Now use strategies to help develop that positive interdependence that we talked about earlier. One of the best ways for doing that is to have roles. There could be a timekeeper, a question seeker, a material resource person, a recorder, a presenter. You decide on the roles that forces them to work together to accomplish what you're hoping for them to do. And of course, at the end of this activity, could be the next day, whatever, you're going to have a quiz. Something that's going to measure what the knowledge that they should have learned doing that activity, some sort of grade. If you don't want to have a quiz, that's fine, but have something that they can hand in to you for a grade, or a check mark, or class participation, whichever way you want, but some sort of individual accountability. And you may, this is optional, you may want to give out some sort of group reward. If a group works well together and all the members worked well and participated, you may want to give maybe an extra credit. You know, you could give candy. Candy works at elementary schools, it works in high school, it even works in college. Some sort of reward to the students for working well together as a group. Okay, we have gone through this on peer-to-peer cooperative learning. Please continue reading your unit modular and get on with the activity. Thank you very much.